across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Delighted to say that Natasha Hausdorff joins us. She's a barrister and legal director at UK Lawyers for Israel. A very good afternoon to you, Natasha.
Good afternoon, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. Look, we've got a ceasefire in the Middle East. It isn't a ceasefire. It's already been broken by both Iran and Israel, according to President Trump. He said, I have to get Israel to calm down, he said, in response to what Israel claims were attacks by Iranian missiles. Iran has denied there were missiles, but there were missiles, so where they've come from. What do you make of, first of all, the claims of ceasefire and also the claims that the strikes by Israel and indeed on Iran and the strikes by America on those nuclear sites were illegal, which has been claimed by, we understand, among others, the Attorney General of the UK?
Well, we're still waiting for some confirmation as to whether those leaks as to his advice were correct. But if they are, I would say that they are certainly not a reflection of the applicable international law. Israel has been in an ongoing armed conflict with Iran for decades. Of course, most of that was conducted by Iran through its terror proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, and latterly the Houthis. But it's also struck Israel directly across last year with hundreds of ballistic missiles. And this is the reported violation of the ceasefire after it came into effect that Iran continued to fire at least one ballistic missile. That has been taken very seriously. We've had both the defense minister in Israel, Katz, and also the chief of staff indicating that this is a violation of the ceasefire and it will be met with a very strong response. So in light of those developments and perhaps the developments over the last week, perhaps we don't take every word that President Trump writes on social media as gospel. And we'll have to see what response that violation by Iran is met with.
Well, indeed. And a lot of people, including our own Prime Minister and our Foreign Secretary, David Lammy as well, kind of tried to sit on the fence about this issue. But we haven't seen that from, say, Mark Rutte, the NATO Secretary General. It was very, very clear that this was a legal strike by America. And indeed, the Friedrich Merz, the German Chancellor, very happy to openly praise the move. Many here, not just our prime ministers, but the commentariats are talking about how this was an act of war that would make the world less safe. But there seems to be, I know we're all going out and being surprised by this, but there seem to be two different rules when it comes to anything that involves Israel or the defence of Israel that come into place whenever there's any international military action.
Well, this is why it's strong, perhaps irrefutable evidence that what is being discussed is not law, because it is being used to justify a political position, one in terms of what members of the British government have been saying is ultimately not just anti-Israel but anti-Western. I think there needs to be a realization, and one that is publicly reflected, that after the last 12 days, the Middle East and the world as a whole is in fact much safer, that the losses that the Islamic regime in Iran have suffered have improved the prospects of a peaceful future across the region, have certainly lessened the ability of the IRGC to target Western interests around the world. And we know that there have been multiple recent plots by this terrorist organisation in the UK that have been foiled. But it's also an increasingly positive prospect for the Iranian people and the ability of the people of Iran to throw off this grotesque, oppressive, dictatorial rule. So anyone that's suggesting that the world is less safe as a result of what has happened over the last 12 days, I'm afraid doesn't understand the first thing about how the Middle East works.
Well, this is it, isn't it? Well, what did you make of the protests? We saw actually on Saturday there were the usual protests, and there were, it was even before the airstrikes by America on Iran, where we actually had people holding up placards with Ayatollah Khomeini on. a man who, and these, by the way, people who think they're on the left, and Iranian flags, for placards of Halat Khomeini, who imprisons and murders and tortures women for not covering their heads, their hair properly. I mean, you and I wouldn't last 5 minutes there, would we? I mean, an evil, awful regime that homosexuality is so illegal and so badly punished that young men who are gay are forced to mutilate their bodies and pretend that they're trans and think they're women so they can stay alive and stay a part of society. I mean, we are talking about the most brutal regime. People marching for Iran on Saturday, and again we saw with Palestine Action, the demonstration we had not at Westminster but Trafalgar Square. They were banned by the police from being outside Westminster. We're told by Yvette Cooper, the Secretary, they're going to be a vote in Parliament next week to proscribe them as a terrorist group after the attack on RAF Brize Norton, where they caused millions of pounds worth of damage to some planes at the Air Force Base by throwing red paint on them. But we've got people standing up for Palestine Action, people standing up for Iran. What do you make of that at UK Lawyers for Israel?
Well, in terms of the left's support for the Ayatollah, let's not forget this was a key component of the Islamic Revolution in 1979, where Iran had its freedom taken away from it. There are many Iranian dissidents that have warned about this unholy alliance between the left and the Islamists that facilitated that takeover, that coup in 1979, and that threatens similar prospects on the basis of what we're witnessing on our streets. In relation to Palestine Action, I mean, this is an organisation that UK Lawyers for Israel has successfully addressed over many, many years in relation to its criminal activity, in particular dealing with its funding and recruitment mechanisms. But of course, its actions have made a mockery of the criminal justice system and the police's total reluctance over many years now to deal with blatant criminality across manufacturers of arms for the British Armed Forces and related companies to those entities. This suggestion by the Home Secretary that it will finally be prescribed comes many years after organisations like UK Lawyers for Israel were calling for this, given the definition in Section 1 of the Terrorism Act, which covers, frankly, all of the conduct of this organisation for a number of years now. Yeah. We Believe in Israel ran a very successful public letter writing campaign. But of course, that was only taken seriously after the attack that you described on an RAF base and the damage to a, I think, £25 million plane. So this is far too little, far too late. The suggestion by the Home Secretary that this will need to be put to a vote in Parliament, I'm afraid, isn't strictly accurate. The Houses of Parliament are able to voice opposition to it, but this is action that ought to have been taken long ago under secondary legislation.
Yeah, this is a Home Office, it was a government decision. What do you make of those who claim that these are people exercising their free speech? This is not personally, they're not attacking people. I've even heard, and blows my mind, but hey, Twitter/X is that mad? People saying, well, what about the suffragettes? They also used, this sort of, not violent protest, they say, but criminal damage as part of their protest. I feel that I'm embarrassed asking you about this, but what do you make of that particular claim, Natasha?
It's simply not true that Palestine Action have not attacked individuals. They have marked employees of the firms that they have gone after out. They have attacked their homes. They have attacked the individual personnel at many of these sites. They have conducted this campaign of terror in order to seek to influence government policy, and that falls squarely under the definition of terrorism. And furthermore, everything that we have seen latterly, and it was confirmed in the last protest in support of Palestine Action, is that this is an organisation that allies itself with terrorist organisations. It has endorsed Hamas. Yeah. In many respects, it has also celebrated the 7th of October and subsequent terrorist atrocities against Israelis and Jews. So this is a deeply anti-Semitic, criminal, terrorist entity, and it's high time that the full force of the legal framework to recognise and limit their abilities to conduct, what the Met Police Commissioner himself lamented it extraordinary that after so many years of inaction by the Metropolitan Police and other police forces to deal with this terrorist organisation.
Although I was excited to see that when people started chanting, you know, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, which of course means the destruction and annihilation of Israel. Most of the people shouting it don't know which sea and which river, as we often realise. But I mean, I'll finally realise that might be a problem statement. But I always think the fascinating comparison with the suffragettes: A, the suffragettes didn't have the vote, and B, Palestine Action members do. You have an ability to change policy in this country. You can do so with campaigns, with protests. You can letter write. You can try and influence politics. But what you don't get to do is break the law to do it.
Or indeed call for genocide with that very slogan.
Small point worth making. Yeah, small point worth making. But it barely seems to be an issue for this government, does it? Can I ask you just finally, I'm taking this tone because it just befuddles me that we've got ourselves into such a mess in this country. But, you know, the enemy within, I think, is as worrying as the enemy without. Jewish doctors, I think not unreasonably, say they now fear for their safety at the British Medical Association's annual conference, where 1 in 10 of the items on the agenda to debate relate to the Israel-Gaza conflict. That's 45 separate motions discussing Israel or Palestine being put forward at their annual meeting, which is taking place this week. It started yesterday, going to Wednesday. They include a claim that Israel is establishing a system of apartheid, a motion arguing that the BMA should support doctors to refuse to pay their taxes to the UK government because it's complicit in genocide, etc., etc. We've had, they say, an anti-Semitic demonstration held outside the conference centre. Here's the thing I don't get. The British Medical Association is the doctors' trade union. That's what they do. Their job is to represent doctors in their, you know, pay and working conditions and contracts with the NHS. What the hell are they doing having an opinion on Israel, Gaza or anything else in the Middle East?
Well, opinions on political situations aside, Julia, we have had constant referrals by concerned medical professionals and members of the public about members of the British Medical Association that have voiced support for terror, that have glorified terrorism, that have clearly engaged in anti-Semitic rhetoric. A lot of this is on social media. And the fact of the matter is my organisation has been actively involved in taking those referrals, making complaints to the Medical Association, and those are being taken very seriously because of the legitimate grounds upon which they have been made. What we have seen in the context of the meeting that is currently taking place comes on the back of hundreds of similar resolutions that were put forward last year, many of which UKLFI were also involved in as a result of these referrals. But I'll just perhaps read you a part of what was passed yesterday, which is that there was a commitment to continue to regard any doctors erased from the register for non-violent protest as professional colleagues in good standing. I mean, this resolution, which was passed yesterday, is a blatant attempt to undermine the regulatory framework of the medical profession. And I think it's something we need to be taking very seriously. Yeah, indeed. I just find it absolutely extraordinary. So many of our institutions have been taken over by... Again, they're obsessed with one particular conflict. I don't know. Did they have lots of motions about what's going on in Yemen, or did they have lots in Syria? No, funny that. I can't, again, never work out what it is about this one particular conflict they're so concerned about. But I'm sure there is an answer to that. Natasha Hausdorff, thank you for your great work, and great to have you on the show. Barrister and legal director at the UK Lawyers for Israel Group.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.